Okay, we'll get started. My name is Mary Kovach from Erie One BOCES Winerick. On the first slide, you'll see a little picture of me, some of my Microsoft badges as well, and my email address if you need to contact me afterward. So as I mentioned a few minutes ago, if you're just signing on now, if you're watching this as a live session, you can ask questions at any time during the session by going to the website that's at the bottom of the slide. So if you type in polev.com/Mary Kovach 058, it will take you to a discussion area where if you have questions as we're going along, you can ask those questions. If you're watching the recording for this, there will be a separate discussion area in our online course platform where you can ask questions in the future. So in general, first we'll look at some benefits of using online assessments with students. A great benefit is you can provide almost immediate feedback to students. That's one of the strategies for student success, is to give them feedback as soon as possible. You can actually set this up so that if you want to, students can see how they did and what they got right and wrong right after they complete their quiz. What's also nice is it provides results data, either overall how students did or per item. So seeing per item how students did, and the ones where maybe students lagged a little bit, you know, those are questions you might have to revisit the content, and thus this data can inform your instruction. And of course, online testing. Online standardized tests are coming very soon. Some may already have tried them out and are doing them this upcoming testing season. But using strategies that you'll find in Microsoft Forms, they're going to be very similar to what they might see on an online standardized test. What's also nice is online assessments can allow for accessibility options. So again, if you have students who need extra help, if it's just a paper test, yes, it could be somewhere where maybe it's read aloud to them. But also, if you're taking online tests, you can use tools that would have the screen read to them. So some examples of that might be this extension. If you're a user of Google Chrome, what it does is the free version will allow you to read what's on the screen. There are also some added benefits to the version that is the paid version. But this and other extensions for Chrome would allow the browser to read your questions. Some other options, let me just get back into my slideshow here. If you have a Windows 10 computer, there's what's called a narrator feature. So for those of you who are, and probably most who are taking this are Office 365 users, and you have Windows 10 devices, there's a built-in narrator feature. So again, if you follow these instructions on your Windows machine, it will bring up the narrator, and then following these steps, you can actually have the screen read the text to you. So again, some added things, some added benefits to using an assessment online. And another nice thing, of course, is for certain types of questions, the app can do the grading for you. So you won't have to go in and manually score short answer or multiple choice or multiple select questions. So some features of Microsoft Forms quizzes. So Microsoft Forms is part of your Office 365 account. So if you have Microsoft Office 365 through your school, you will already have access to Microsoft Forms. So the feature of Forms that we're going to talk about is called quizzes. And what's nice is since you're working in the cloud environment, in Microsoft, you can create it from anywhere and access it from anywhere. And it will automatically save into your Office 365 account. Another nice feature is that you can easily share this with students through either a link. Also, if you're using OneDrive with students, either a shared folder or shared documents in a team drive, you can add that as a new link. Within our course module, I also have a link of how, if you're using OneNote class notebook, you can embed a Microsoft Forms quiz into that notebook as well. And also, you can get an embed code that you can put into a Microsoft Sway. So for those who took my previous webinar about using Microsoft Sway to create presentations, this can be something that is embedded into your Sway as well. Also, to alleviate the possibility of students not putting in their name when they submit their quiz or putting in someone else's name, you can have it automatically collect student names based on their Office 365 login. Also, you have the option, instead of just questions that are text, you can put in images. So for example, put in an image or a video and say, what is this an example of? So for those who maybe have taken my vocabulary webinar before, vocabulary isn't always just about a definition. Sometimes it's about an example that is non-linguistic, that is an image or a video. So sometimes you can put these into a question and then ask students a question based on that image or video. And student results are collected immediately and viewable through your Office 365 account. And they can be seen in more detail, or if you want a download that's offline, you can download an Excel spreadsheet for your students' results. Now, the forms, as I mentioned, can be automatically scored as long as you choose that quizzes option. So again, the kinds of questions that can be automatically scored are multiple choice, where you're choosing one correct answer from a range of possible answers. Multiple select, where you're choosing one or more answers from a range of possible answers. And also, short answer can be automatically scored. And if you're using this feature, students can be given immediate feedback, but also you can set up your own feedback for students based on the answer they chose for multiple choice and multiple select. So again, based on what answer they chose, you can kind of guide them in the right direction or give them affirmation if they have the correct answer. Okay, so now we'll go through how you could get started by creating a Microsoft form. And then as we go through the presentation, show you some of those other features. So first, what you would have to do is log into your Office 365 account. And this is only available for those who would have Office 365. And then you want to go to all of your apps on your app launcher and click Forms. And then once you're in there, and this is very important, if you want it to be something where it grades students, where you put in point values, where it auto grades and gives them that immediate feedback, you want to make sure that instead of choosing new form, you choose new quiz. So right now I'm going to go into my Office 365 account. Now for me, Forms is right on my startup page. If it's not there for you, what you may have to do is go here to the upper left and click on your app launcher. And then from here, click on Forms. Okay, now under here, I can create a new quiz, give my quiz a title. So I'm going to call this one, let's say I'll make one about St. Patrick's Day. Okay. And this will save automatically. So if you look up here near the upper right, it says saved. As long as you don't lose your internet connection, there's no save button. This will save automatically. Okay, so now I'll just go back to my presentation here. So we started our new quiz. We took a look at the educational resources, which I have linked from this presentation as well. Okay, so now we've created our quiz, and now we can click on Add Question. So again, we can choose from these four, or if I click on the three dots, I can also choose a ranking question or a Likert. So the kinds of questions that can be auto-graded would be the choice, either multiple choice or multiple select, and the text type of question, which would be sort of a fill in the blank or type in a short or long answer. Okay, so let me go back to my quiz here, and I'm going to click Add Question. So let's say the first one here, I want this to be choice. Okay. So I can say, let's say, in what month do we celebrate St. Patrick's Day? Okay, now notice based on what I typed in, I typed in the word month, it's going to give me some possible suggestions here. So the same thing happens if you're using Google Forms. It's going to search your text to see if there's suggestions they can give you. So what I'm going to do is click on, I could add all, but that would be a lot for students to choose from. So I'm just going to add in, let's say January, February, March, and April. Okay, so now what I can do is choose which one is the correct answer. So the way that I do that is if I kind of mouse over where it says March, I'm going to go to the end here and click on the check mark, and that's going to mark that as a correct answer. Now again, if there was more than one correct answer, I could select that as well. But again, I want this to be a correct answer, not necessarily this one here. Okay. So if it was multiple answers, I would have to choose this at the bottom, and then I could select more than one correct answer. But again, in this case, I don't want multiple answers because St. Patrick's Day is always going to be in March. If I wanted to add more options, I could add that here. So now what I've done is I've identified the correct answer. And here I can put in how many points that question is worth. Okay. And it will save automatically. Okay, so now we'll look at some other options that we have here. Okay, so we talked so far about the choice questions. So clicking on the check marks, whether it's one or multiple, and just make sure at the bottom, if it is multiple select, where you'll have more than one, or check all that apply, that you slide that little slider over. And if appropriate, you can give feedback based on their answer in the bubbles. And we typed in a point value. So let me show you the option then for feedback based on their response. So I'm going to mouse over where it says March and click on the speech bubble. And I can say yes. St. Patrick's Day is in March. Okay, and I can do the same thing for each of these. So I can say, you know, close. You may be thinking of Valentine's Day. I can say St. Patrick's is in March. So depending on what they answer, I can give customize customized answers. And here, let's say I'm going to say, so close. You were 1 month too late. Okay. And so again, when students, if you set it up so that they can see their feedback right away, they are going to see feedback based on which answer they choose. Okay, and again, if it was multiple answers of multiple ones were correct, I would just click that slider. And if I want this question to be required, I can click this slider. What that does is students have to answer the question then in order to proceed. Okay. And again, some of the other requirements, let me just take a look at some other question types here. If you're typing in a text question, this is where you can put in a question and students have to type in the answer. So they're not selecting from a range of options. They're actually typing in the answer. And some options that you have, for example, if this is a math question, you can click on the 3 dots in the lower right-hand corner of the question, and you can say that it's a math question. And that will bring up an equation editor for students. Let's say they have to put in an equation or show their work. You can also restrict it so that the answer has to be a number. So again, if you know the answer is going to be a number, not text, you can restrict it so that students have to put in a number. And you can specify a range for that number as well. Okay, so now we'll look at the other kind of question. So I'm going to click again on my add question. Whenever I add a new question, I'll click on the plus. And this one I'm going to choose as a text question. Okay. So my question will be, and I'll put an image in here. I'll say, what is this St. Patrick's Day symbol? Okay, and here is where, if I want to, I can search for an image or I can put in a link for a YouTube video. Okay, so I'm going to search for a shamrock and click the search button. Okay, and when it's searching for images for you to bring in, it will tag them, only bring up images that are tagged as Creative Commons, which means images that are copyright friendly. So let's see, I'll choose this one here. Okay, and then I'm going to add that image by clicking add. Okay, and if I decided I didn't want that one, I wanted something else, I could click on the delete button. Click on the edit button if I wanted to zoom in or zoom out on the question. So I'm just going to make that a smaller shamrock. Okay. And if I wanted to, I could put text in there as well. In this case, I don't want to. I'll just call that symbol. Okay, because I don't want to somehow give away what it is. Now, students would enter their answer. So again, if you want this one to be auto-graded, you can add what the correct answers would be. So I'm going to type in shamrock. Okay. Now, again, you could have more than one possible correct answer. So if you want to say also that the word clover is acceptable. So on to our next features. So we have that set up, and I'll keep that as 5 points as well. Okay, so some other options that you have here. Okay, so your quiz settings. So if I click on the 3 dots in the upper right corner here, then you have your options for your quiz. So if you want students to get that immediate feedback, you would click on that slider and show that option. And the next section, this is where you choose whether you want students to have to log in with their Office 365 account or not. So what's nice about that option is that it will automatically record students' names. You can choose that option. Also, if you want students to only respond once and not try several times, then you can choose that as an option. The drawback is you want students to take the quiz, and let's say you just posted the link to your website, let's say. Well, what if students forgot how to log in? Then that's always a concern. Or if you have people taking the quiz who are outside of your organization, then you would want to keep this first option on here. Some other options you have, you can choose if you wanted a specific start and end date for the quiz. So if you didn't want it to show up until a certain time, let's say until you were done with a certain unit of study, and you didn't want students to be able to submit after, let's say, it was due, you could set start and end dates. You can choose whether you want to shuffle your questions or not, and also choose whether or not you want to get an email notification each time there is someone who takes that quiz. Okay, so I'm just going to show a few more options here. Just maybe add one more question in here and then show those options. So I'm going to click add a question. And then I'll just make this one multiple choice as well. Okay, now again, if I wanted to, I could click on video. Now it has to be a YouTube video link. So if I go to YouTube, I would have to search for example, St. Patrick's Day for kids. And then I can choose a video that they would have to watch and then answer questions. Okay. So I'll just click on one of these here. Okay, so now what I would have to do is copy the link at the top of the page. I can right click and copy. Okay, and then I'm going to go back to my form here. And I'm just going to paste in, right click and paste. And then click add. Okay. So let's say this video talked about different traditions. I could say, which of the following are St. Patrick's Day traditions? Okay. And let's say this one I wanted to be multiple answers. So I can say wearing green, decorating the tree. I could add more options. Eating corned beef, let's say. And let's see, giving chocolate hearts to friends. So again, this would be check all that apply. So again, I'm going to mark eating corned beef as a correct answer and also wearing green. And again, I can do that because I changed that slider here to my multiple answers. Okay, so now this is saved automatically. And now I'm going to go up to my 3 dots all the way in the upper right. We're not going to really talk about branching in this particular case, but you can choose to have several pages and then students are brought to a page based on what they've already answered. So I'm going to go from my 3 dots to my settings. And I do have that option to show results automatically. So again, this would then say that students would be able to see their results as soon as they completed the quiz. Okay. If you didn't want that option, you could click that little slider and make that white instead of green. But in this case, since I want students to get that immediate feedback, I'm going to keep that option. Okay, and this is where now, if I wanted to record their name, I can choose only people in my organization can respond. So then that would be only people within your school district. So if I wanted students to only take this one time, I would keep that checked. If not, I can uncheck that or any of these options. Okay, I can choose whether or not I'm still accepting responses. I can do that manually, or I could go in here and I could set a specific start and end date. So by default, the start and end date is just going to be an hour time frame, but you could certainly set that for a longer time frame as well. So let's say, no, I really want that to be 4, and I'm going to set that for, let's say, Monday. And here also is where, if I wanted to shuffle the question order, so they're not going to be in the same order for every single student, if you wanted that option. So they can't say, oh, question number 1 is the third option, and question number 2 is the first option. This will shuffle it for each student. Sometimes, though, you might want to lock certain questions in place. So let's say that certain questions were sequential and they relied on each other. Then you might want to lock certain questions in place. So if I just wanted 1 through 2 to be locked in place, or just 1 through 1, let's say I could do that. In this case, I'm just going to choose all questions. And again, if you wanted to get an email whenever a student responds, you can choose that option as well. If you feel like that's too many emails to get, then you could certainly keep that option unchecked. Okay, and again, everything is going to save automatically within your Office 365. Your form will save automatically. Okay, so now let's look at some other options that you have once you set these up. I'll show you the options that you have for sharing your quiz. So again, you may have seen next to the 3 dots a tab that says Share. So this allows you to get a link for your live quiz. So again, it's going to create a link for you that then you could copy and either paste into your OneDrive, paste into your Microsoft Team Drive, post onto your school website, however you would share a link with students. As I mentioned, there's also options if you wanted to embed that into your OneDrive, if you use OneDrive, or also use the embed code to put it into a Microsoft Sway. Now, there's 2 other options here. Share as template. That option allows you to get a link to share with, let's say, fellow teachers where you don't want them to edit your quiz, but you want them to get a link so they can make their own copy. And the other option, Share to Collaborate. This is where, let's say you have a co-teacher, you have the same students, and you want them to be able to either edit the questions with you or to go behind the scenes and see the results. So either one of those 2 options. And then also I'll show how you can change the theme, which is kind of the color. And if you wanted an image to change your look and feel, you can choose that as well. Okay, so I'm going to go into my form. So again, to share, what I can do is I can get a link, which now I can copy the link. Okay. You have some other options here as well. If you wanted a QR code, let's say it was something that you wanted to print out and post in class for students to scan with a device, this is also how students could get to the quiz. But the link, what I could do is, for example, go to my OneDrive. And let's say that I had a shared folder. I could do new link, and then I could paste that link in. Call that St. Eddie's and click create. And then it's going to create that link to the live form right within here. Okay, and this is how it would look so far to students. Okay, same thing, you can put it into a team drive as a link. Also, an option you have is you can click on this embed icon and click copy. And I could put that into a Microsoft Sway. So from here, from my Office 365, for those who watched my Sway webinar, you're familiar with this, but Sway is a tool that you can use to create online presentations. Okay. So I'm just going to put it into one of my existing ones. Not that it's necessarily going along with one of these. Let's put it in my solar eclipse one here. So again, what I can do is if I click on my presentation here, I can click on insert, and then I can choose any different types of content from here. So here, what I can do is I can put in that embed code. So let's say underneath here, let's see, I would go to media and choose embed. Okay, so now what I would have to do is click where it says paste your embed code. I'm just going to either right click and paste or my Control V and paste that in. And it doesn't really look like too much from here, but then when I go to play, it's going to be embedded right within there. Okay, so now I would click here and then fill out the form. So again, another way that you can do that, you can put it right into your Microsoft Sway. So some different ways that you can share your Microsoft form. And of course, you could send it as an email as well. But again, putting a link to every student's email address might get to be a little bit cumbersome. Oh, and of course, now it's starting up my Lotus Notes to try to email that. I won't actually email that out right now, though. Okay, so I'll quit out of my Lotus Notes. Okay, and then this is where, if I wanted to share it as a template, this is a link for others to duplicate. So if I shared this link, I copied it, I emailed that to one of my coworkers, they would have the ability to make a copy of their own, and then they could edit it for their own students. And again, the share to collaborate option, if I click here, they would get a link to actually edit my quiz. So again, this is a great option if you have co-teachers where perhaps you have the same students and you want them to be able to add questions and also to see the student responses. Okay, and then if I click theme at the top, here is where if I wanted a different color theme, I could click on that. The other option is I could choose one of these picture backgrounds, or I can click on this icon to upload an image, or I could choose, let's say, one of these and I can click add. Okay, and then that's going to make that the background. Maybe that's not the best background. Maybe in this case, let's say, I'll just use the green background. But certainly you can find an image that you would want to use for the background as well. Okay, so now if you wanted to view responses, so what I might do first is I'll take a few practice responses. Okay, so now in order for me to do that, I'm just going to have to make a little tweak here to my settings. Okay, because I want to be able to take a few. So I'm going to say I don't want it to be just one response per person, just so I can take that several times. Okay. Oh, so now again in share, I can copy this link and paste it into a new tab, or I can click on the eyeball up here to preview. So when I click up here, now I can take that quiz as if I were a student. Okay. Okay, so now you can see it's shuffling the order of the questions. Okay. So let's say I put in Clover and click submit. Okay, so now I actually can see my points right away because I chose that option for students. And I can see here where I didn't get all of them correct. Now, as a teacher, if I wanted to give partial credit, I can certainly go in and do that. So I'll show you how you can do that as well. Okay, and so again, I got that one correct. Now, again, if students are taking this on a mobile device, I can also preview how this would look on a mobile device. Okay, so I'm just going to preview that again. And so let's say now, I'm going to say I got that right. Okay. And let's see, I'll type in, yeah, I'll just type in Shamrock with a capital to show that feature. Okay, so I got that all correct. So again, it's not case sensitive, which it is in a lot of the tools that I use. If it's fill in the blank, it is case sensitive. But this one, Microsoft Forms, it looks like it is not. So again, it gave me full credit for Shamrock, for getting March, and also since I got both of these questions correct. And I can see how that looks on mobile as well. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is look at my responses. Okay. So again, the options with this, you can see how many responses there are, the average time it took to complete, and you have some other options here. So again, you can review student answers. So again, this will allow you to look at question by question how students did. So questions where a lot of students performed poorly, you can then use that to, and you can see which answers they chose to maybe clear up misunderstandings and revisit that content in class. You can also print out that summary or save a PDF, or you can get a link to the summary of responses. And as I mentioned, if you wanted to download a copy of student responses, you could click the little X on the green box to open that in Microsoft Excel. Now, the summary link with this, students will be able to see overall results of how everybody did, but it's not going to use student names in there. So again, if students wanted to see their scores, what you would be able to do is click on where it says post scores. And if they did use their Office 365 logins, they can then use the same quiz link, the same link they used to take the quiz, and they can see just their scores. Okay, so I'm going to go to my form here. And now it says at the top here, next to my questions tab, I have the tab that says responses. So now in here, it's going to tell me how many responses, what's the average score, and the status of my quiz. So again, it's active because either I did the check mark is active under my settings, or it's still within the start and end date that I may have set. Okay, and if I click on my three dots here, here's where, if I wanted to print out a summary, or again, I could save that as a PDF. And just because that's my last printer, it was a black and white one, you can certainly see that in color as well. So this will give you a printout of those results. Or I can just click on create a summary link. Okay, so I can copy that link. And then if I wanted to just show the results to somebody else in my school, let's say a fellow teacher, the principal, other administrator, let's say, this is now a link that I could share with them. They wouldn't have access to edit my quiz or delete responses or anything, but then they could see overall how students performed on those particular questions. Okay, so now I have the option in here. Let's close out of here. If I wanted to review answers, what this does is I can review answers by student. So if I wanted to look, and obviously I just have two Mary Kovaches here, but if you had your students signing in and taking the quiz through their Office 365 account, you would have a list of all their names here, and you can go through the arrows to choose student by student. It's going to tell you how long it took them to complete it and how many points they received. So let's say that in this case now, I did want to go in and give Mary partial credit. So again, it auto grades, but let's say that you did, because this was multiple select, you did want to give her partial credit because she did get that one correct. But she got that one as a wrong answer. So maybe let's say instead I wanted to give her 2 points instead of 0. I can certainly do that. And then I could also give her custom feedback here as well. And say, you know, you were so close. And say, you did get wearing green correct. Okay, so then you could give students some custom feedback from here as well. Okay, so again, you can either see your responses student by student by clicking people, or if I click on questions, I can see the results based on question. And so now here's where I can see how students did overall, question by question. So again, talking about looking at questions one by one to figure out which ones students may need some more help on as a group. So looking at those questions that maybe I want to revisit as a whole class. And then I can click back and I have my responses. So again, if I wanted to download that as an Excel file, if I click open in Excel, that file is going to download to my computer. And then I can open that one in Microsoft Excel. And so then it shows up something like this. So if you're someone who likes to have that hard copy, or maybe it's something where you want to bring it into your gradebook. If you have eSchool or PowerSchool, then you can work with these columns and then bring those into your gradebook as well. Okay. Now I'm checking to see if there are any questions. I don't see anything in the poll everywhere. So usually most people watch this as a video after the fact, which is more than fine. That is perfectly acceptable to do. Just one other option I didn't show you, if you are someone who uses Class Notebook or OneNote, if I go to my Class Notebook online, and I go to Manage Notebooks. Okay, so let's say I wanted to open up my ELA 3 here. I'm going to open up that class notebook. Okay. And now I do have the ability from here, if I click on the Insert tab, I can insert a form right into my OneNote pages. So I can either start a new form or quiz, or I can insert any of my existing quizzes into here. Okay. Okay, this probably isn't the best page, to put it on here. Maybe I just wanted to put it down here somewhere instead. So let me just take this out of here, because I was actually within my title here instead. So instead, let me just go here. I'm going to create a new page. I'm going to call that quiz. Okay. And then in the body here, I'm going to put in my St. Patrick's Day quiz here. Okay. So once I'm actually in the body of a page, I can click on my Microsoft Forms, and then it should show up as a quiz that they can take right from here as well. So now students can either click on the link. It's going to take them to a new window to fill out that form, or they should be able to, unless for some reason it's not displaying, they should be able to take the quiz through this embedded page as well. Okay, so those are the options that we have for Microsoft Forms. So again, if you have any questions during the live session, I'll keep this open just for a few more minutes here. And I'll show you also how you can access the materials from our online platform. So again, the address, if you wanted to ask a question, is polev.com/MaryKovac058. Okay, so now, let me log back into our online course platform. Okay, and as with all my quizzes, I'm now going to give you the secret code. So I'm just going to go back here. Let's say I'll just start a new Word document here to give that to you. Okay. Okay, so I'm just make that a little bit bigger on the screen here. Okay, so the secret code that you need in order to move on to the quiz, if you want to get the certificate, is quiz in O365. So it looks kind of like Quizino 365, but really what it stands for is I'm creating a quiz in O365, which of course stands for Office 365. Okay, so that will be our secret code. Okay, so now let me go back to my webinars page. Okay, and click on Microsoft Forms for Assessment. So you're already there, I'm sure, if you've watched the video. If you haven't already registered, make sure you click on the registration link and fill that out. Okay, so if you are asking questions, if you're watching this recording after the fact and you have questions for me, please ask your questions by clicking on this discussion area called Questions About Microsoft Forms for Assessment, and click Start a New Thread. And there you would type in a title and your question, and then click Post to ask your question. Because I will close this poll everywhere right now. So from this point forward, what you would do to ask a question is go to this discussion area here from our online platform. So the first thing you would do is you would go to the Microsoft Forms secret code quiz. You would put in, again, our secret code. And here it is again. And then once you successfully put in the secret code, you will be able to see another quiz that says Microsoft Forms quiz. And as with the other quizzes that we've done in the past, it's 5 questions. If you get 4 out of 5 correct, or an 80%, and you can try as many times as you would like to. If you have issues, please let me know. And once you successfully complete that quiz, you will have access to your certificate through the news area from the online platform. So from this point on, for any of the Office 365 quizzes, starting with Microsoft Sway for this one. And then for our last Office 365 webinar, which is writing projects in PowerPoint, you can go to your news area. And again, once you've successfully completed that quiz, you should see a certificate that looks something like this once you click on news. And then for any of those, starting from our January Office 365 webinar, you can get your certificates from here, and then you can print them out from here. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my Microsoft Forms for Assessment. So some other resources you have here. Once you successfully complete the quiz and you have your certificate, you will also then see a link to my presentation. So then you'll have access to any of this information that you can look through, and any of the links that I may have in here as well. And then also I've included some links. If you are someone who is using Microsoft Sway or using OneNote, these are help links to walk you through the steps of putting your form into a Microsoft Sway or putting your form into OneNote. Okay, so we have that. The only difference here is you don't necessarily have cards anymore, but from your Microsoft Sway, instead you would click on Insert. But this shows you then where you would go to get that embed code that you would put into an embed card. Okay, and then also I have the link in here if you wanted to put this into your OneNote. So if you're using OneNote or OneNote Class Notebook, this then walks you through the steps of how you can embed that form into your Microsoft OneNote. So again, if you have any questions after the fact, please feel free to either email me, or if you want to, you can post them to this discussion area as well. Okay, so that is Microsoft Forms for Assessment. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing you in the next webinar. Have a great night or day.